Testing, 1, 2. Can you hear me, Carol? Carol, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you. Can you see my screen? Where'd they go? We are having technical difficulties and it's called Karen. I do hope you all can see the agenda.
Good morning. As everyone is signing on, if you could try to hover over the three dots beside your name and add your school name there. We will ask later for people to put their district in once your budgets are done. And if you put your school name in the chat, it gets it all confused. So try to change your name to include your school name in it. If not, you could just send me an email at carol.tomlin@sde.ok.gov to let me know you're attending. Okay, so on your little picture, it'll have your name. If you hover over your name, there'll be three dots beside it. You'll click on those three dots, scroll down to the bottom, it says rename. You click rename, and then you'll put your school name out beside your actual name that we can see on the screen. That way the chat doesn't get confused, so that when we ask later for those who have their budgets done, it will be right there. So what I'm saying on here as far as changing your name is also in the chat box. So if you can't hear me, it's in the chat box.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our finance workshops, virtual edition. Sorry we could not do the in-person. We tried our best, but COVID got the better of it. So we welcome you. Let me introduce you to the finance team. I'm sure you all know who you've been speaking to when you've needed assistance. We have Ashley Henson, Carol Tomlin, Janet Felton, and I'm Karen Howard. You can, hopefully you can see my screen. It's got the agenda up. We're going to present our PowerPoint. We've got a few changes or updates, and it's going to be included in that. Time allowing, we're going to take a quick little break. We will do budget application instructions. We'll take a hour lunch, and then we'll come back with budget approvals. Budget approvals for districts that are already completed their budgets and just are needing them approved. In a moment, we will have you put your district name only in the chat box, but please do not do that yet. Let's give everybody some time to get their names and the district they are representing. There are instructions in the chat box of how to add your district name. That way we know what districts to give the points to for attending today's workshop. Give you a few minutes to get started on that while I get my PowerPoint set up. Yes, ma'am. Say that again. Yes, ma'am. Can everybody hear me?
I can hear you.
Yes.
Thank you. Carol, can you hear me?
No, but it's my computer. I'm trying to figure it out.
Okay, and Janet is telling me she can't hear me either.
I can hear you just fine.
Awesome.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Janet. All righty. Normally I will ask how many are new, but we're not going to have a show of hands. I'm not going to be looking at the screen on my right that shows me all of your lovely faces. So if you are new and you need assistance or have questions, please shout out. If you have done this for a while and you have questions, please shout out. Ashley can put a link, I believe, in the chat box for the PowerPoint, if you would like to have her do that. IDEA funds, as you all know or should know, are federal dollars. And the purpose of those are to help the LEAs support the special ed programs that they have and the special ed kiddos. You can use those for related services, technology, coordinated early intervening, some specific contract assistance as in OT, speech, PT, those things are what you should be using your federal dollars for. There are two requirements according to or in IDEA, and that is your excess cost and your maintenance of effort. I learned a year or so back that most districts thought excess cost and maintenance of effort was the same thing. However, it is not. They have some similarities, but they do require different calculations and different requirements. So we'll run through the excess cost quickly here. Excess cost is comparing cost of student to student. All kids have the right for an free education, but your special ed kiddos require a little bit more than what your general ed kids would. You can.
Yes, this is Ronnie here, Bridges. Could you please call me about the 2013 Kia?
Talk.
0689220?
System. You must meet it in both elementary and secondary.
So if it's 130,000 miles or below, it's free.
Karen, I hate to interrupt, but can we make sure that everybody has their microphones muted because someone does not?
$500, $2,200.
And we can't hear Karen.
Okay,
Do you have a preferred method for how we do these during school shifts? Like, do we give preference to how we let them sign up? Wish I had them all at the same time. That would be easier. They can all just check it at once, but
No, because it's going to be limited. Softball girls and baseball boys can't work.
I mean,
microphone.
they're
All righty, thank you. As I was saying on your excess cost, you must meet it in both elementary and secondary. You cannot be okay if you meet it in just one. Now my PowerPoint won't advance. There it goes. As far as excess cost goes, there are no exceptions to excess cost. OCAST and I are working together to try to get ahead of districts before they actually certify their data and can't make any corrections. So if you are one of the districts, we have 15 that have not met excess cost. If you are one of those 15, I will be contacting you most likely next week to assist you in what you need to do, what you need to research, look at, so that you can meet excess cost. To view the report, you're actually going to go to the state website and go to the OCAST portion, go to your district reports, and you'll see it listed where it says excess cost report 2014 and later. That's where you can go to view the excess cost report. Right above it is where you would go to view the district maintenance of effort for special ed. This is what the excess cost report looks like. You want to look down at the bottom where we've got met. Make sure that says met, or do not let your superintendent certify your data. Once it's certified, you cannot go in and change it. So these are the districts that the 15 that we will be contacting did not meet it in one or the other. But always check this. You can check this report throughout the year. Anytime you make changes to your data, you should go in and check this report because it's going to affect any changes you've made. So you always want to be checking this to see where you stand. On your maintenance of effort for special ed IDEA, you must maintain 100% level for state and local funds for special ed. Federal programs has a different amount. I believe they're at 90%. Special ed is 100% must meet. There are 4 methods that you can use to calculate. You can do it by local total expenditures, local per capita, state and local total expenditures, or state and local per capita. Oklahoma Coast Accounting, the OCAS department, only calculates it two ways. They do total expenditures for state and local and total per capita state and local. You must meet maintenance of effort in one or the other, either by expenditures or by per capita. In your LEA agreement, you have a tab that's called maintenance of effort. We know that the superintendent normally has some other staff completing the LEA agreement for them, which is fine. When you get to this tab, you're going to see three columns. You'll have column 1, which should be the past year, column 2, which should be the current year, and column 3, which is the future year. When you're completing these agreements, column 1 right now would be FY21. You should know what that data is. The data you're inputting into that column must match exactly to the data you submitted to OCAS. Column 2, which is your current year, you do not have that data available at the time you're completing this tab. Once you do get that data available and it's been certified, you will have to go in and do an amendment and update this column. Every district is required to do that. You must either meet by same amount or more than the previous year. For some reason, my clicker is not letting me advance, so I'm a little slower. OCAS will notify you if you have not met maintenance of effort for special ed. They will turn over a list to our team of districts that did not meet maintenance of effort for special ed. And we will start looking at contacting districts, looking for exceptions that may aid you if you have a penalty. There are 5 exceptions. The most used exception is the voluntary departure. Voluntary departure. You cannot fire a teacher. I'm sorry, let me reword that. You cannot use the voluntary departure if you let a teacher go because you could not meet payroll, because you did not have the funds, so you had to do cutbacks, and you let a teacher go because of cutbacks. That is not an acceptable exception, and that does not fall under the voluntary departure. Now, if you have had to release because of conduct or such, a polite way of saying you fired somebody, that would be an exception because it's for just cause. But you cannot use this exception if you just had cutbacks and can't afford payroll and you let people go. Your decrease in enrollment is already factored in by the time OCAS gives us the report. The termination of the obligation, you may have a student that requires a lot of services that you've had to pay for, and that child has graduated or left your district and you no longer need those services. Those can be used as an exception. The termination of a costly expenditure. This must be $5,000 or more. The most often example we use is a school bus, a school van. Maybe you had a van and you had to have a lift added to it. Anything that is a costly expenditure that's over $5,000, you can use a costly expenditure exception. And the assumption of the cusp of the high needs, this is if you are joining the high needs tier 1, tier 2, and it is only for that first year. Any questions on maintenance of effort so far? Carol is going to be monitoring the chat box. If you have any questions and you don't want to shout them out, put them in the chat box and Carol will respond to you. We really like to stress how important it is a district's data is and how you're coding things. On your maintenance of effort, if we contact you because you did not meet it and you tell us, oh, we just coded that wrong, that is not an exception. That can hurt you if you've miscoded something. So it's very important that you watch how you're coding your things and make sure that you're coding them properly. As for your COVID funds, there's no, or because of maintenance of effort, there are no exceptions under IDEA in regards to the COVID-19. As I stated, OCAS will send us a list of what districts have not met maintenance of effort. We will contact those districts. We will ask for specific reports that will help us see if there's some exceptions. You may know of an exception that you met and you would need to inform us at that time. Show proof of that exception at that time to help either eliminate or hopefully totally, to help reduce or totally eliminate your penalty. If for whatever reason your penalty cannot be totally erased, your state aid funding will be reduced by the amount of that penalty. Those funds do not stay in the state of Oklahoma. We have to return them back to Washington. That's why we try real hard to help districts meet maintenance of effort. We try to look at everything exception-wise. We do not want to return any funds back to DC. DC has informed us they go into a big hole, never to be seen again. We need that money here. Any questions on maintenance of effort, excess cost? Carol, any questions in the chat?
The only question so far is when the LEA agreement should be amended, which it should be amended as soon as your OCAS data is set.
Yes, once your data has been certified and you cannot make any changes to it, that's when you need to go in and do your amendment. That used to be a set date of December the 15th. I understand that date is no longer used. So it's whenever you have certified your data and no changes to be made, you need to go in and amend your LEA agreement to update that data. Okay, we're going to move on to our assurances, LEA agreements, and consolidated application. These are not new. For those who are new to this position of dealing with, these are required by the superintendent to complete. They must be completed prior to July the 1st. They must be done in order. You have to do the assurances first and then the LEA agreements. Once the assurances have been submitted, once your LEA agreement has been submitted, once we have released the allocation, and not necessarily, we might open the application up where you can be working on it. Some districts have several names they need to list. So you can be working on it even if your allocation has not been released yet, but you would not be able to submit an application until the allocations are released. Another thing in your LEA agreement is you must upload your policies and procedures for child find and your policies and procedures on your discipline. In the past, we have allowed districts to upload on school letterhead a statement stating that, yes, we follow the procedure set by the State Department. That is no longer acceptable. You must have policies and procedures specific for you, the district. But you are allowed to copy and paste our policies onto your school letterhead. You just cannot submit a wording of, we follow what your guidelines are and call that your procedures. That is not acceptable. Again, once you've done your assurances, then you move on to your agreements, then you move on to your application. One of the things we have a lot of phone calls on for the assurances, for the LEA agreements, even on the application, is districts will call and say, I don't have a submit button. The only time the submit button is going to show up is triggered by the superintendent's sign on. If you are not the superintendent, you will not see a sign on button. We do know that some superintendents share their sign on with other staff. That is not something we endorse, but we know what happens. But it is that superintendent's sign on that triggers that. And no matter who is clicking on it, that superintendent is held liable for whatever happens. On your allocation, the way we come up with the allocation that each district receives is by a formula. That formula is a base payment, a base adjustment of payments, 85% total enrollment, and 15% low income free and reduced lunches. When you receive your allocation, all your budgets, all your claims, your expenditures must be submitted through the grant management system. Make sure your expenditures are necessary and reasonable. And here's our new baby. The American Rescue Plan, we refer to as ARP IDEA. This is not your ARP ESSER. This is specific to IDEA. This is the first year you've received it. And you will have to complete budgets using these funds. It is basically the same thing as your IDEA funding. It's going to have a mirrored application, meaning when you've normally gone in and done your IDEA 621, 641, 623 budgets, that's exactly what your ARP application is going to look like. But the application on it will be called ARP IDEA. It has the same guidelines as IDEA. It can be used the very same way you use your IDEA funds. It is suggested that you not use these funds for salaries because these funds are just a temporary. They have the same 27-month lifespan as your IDEA money. Excuse me. But once that 27 months is gone, this money is gone. So if you've elected to pay a salary on someone that you've already been paying a salary for, you're going to cause you some problems. For one, how will you pay that salary when this money ends? For two, what funds were you using to pay that salary with before? If you were paying that salary before with state and local funds, you're going to cause yourself a problem with maintenance of effort. So just kind of put in some thoughts. What's going to help your district best? Kind of look at maybe things you've always wanted and never had the money for that are allowable expenses, and you might could purchase something along that. You might want to expand in areas that you need to assist all of your special ed kiddos. So just put some thought into how you're doing that. And remember, if you're paying a salary, how are you going to pay it once that money's gone? Some districts have been designated as significantly disproportionate. Some districts are in a co-op or interlocal. Some are addressing proportionate shares. All of these are taking into consideration allocations, including your ARP funds. Meaning, if you are significantly disproportionate and you are required to set aside that 15% mandatory, that 15% also must come out of your ARP IDEA. We had 7 districts that were found significantly disproportionate. That has to do the mandatory 15% set aside. That's going to come out of your 621, 641 money and your ARP. And I don't have the numbers memorized, 628, 643, I believe. So anything that reflects a total allocation, it's going to be all of those. Here are the projects. 628 is your IDEA flow through. Your flow through private, your preschool private, and your early intervene. So here are your new project codes. OCAS is set up for those. That is still federal dollars. It is not going to affect your maintenance of effort unless you're using it to replace something you've spent state and local money on, and you're not spending that state and local money anywhere else, then you'll have an issue with maintenance of effort in regards to your ARP and any IDEA federal dollars. Any questions on any of that so far?
Okay, let me jump in with a question from the chat. It's so to make sure I understand, the funds we expend through ARP will still be subject to MOE. Remember, your maintenance of effort is the money that you spend of state and local dollars from one year to the next. So as long as you are maintaining the use of your state and local funds, you will be fine. That's why we say use the ARP money to supplement. Don't replace the way you're spending your state and local funds.
There is guidance for the ARP funds on our website. If you
Ashley has already attached it in the chat also.
the guidance or the PowerPoint. I'm just
Both.
So Ashley's put it in the chat box so you can view what the ARP guidance is, and that will help you when you're looking at ways to spend this money and how not to spend this money. Okay. We'll move on to the Coordinated Early Intervening Services, CEIS. This is where you have the choice, the voluntary option, if you want to set aside part of your 621 funds to help in your identifying of kiddos. This is for kiddos that are not on an IEP that may need a little extra attention. You don't want to put them on an IEP if you can assist in another fashion. It's totally voluntarily. It is up to the 15%. It is not the full 15%. And you may choose to not do this at all. That is totally your choice. It's going to depend on what you, the district, fits your needs. Again, it's important to identify those kids prior to. It is kiddos, again, that are not on IEPs. Some of the activities that you could do with your voluntary set aside. some professional developments, software, supports. Then we have the Comprehensive Coordinated Early Intervening, which is your CCEIS, which is your significant disproportionality, which requires districts that are found to be significantly disproportionate mandatory set aside of 15%. Again, on this mandatory set aside, it must come from all IDEA funding allocations. That would include your 621 flow through IDEA, your 641 preschool IDEA, and your ARP flow through and preschool funding. Again, when you do your budget, it will let you know if you were found to be significantly disproportionate. It will show you the amount of mandatory funds you must set aside. You do have the option of choosing if you want it all to come from on your IDEA funds. Do you want it to all come from your 621? Do you want some of it to come from your 641? You can split it however you want to between those two. Same thing on your ARP, flow through or preschool. You can choose which pot of funds you want that penalty, that 15% to come from. When an allocation adjustment is done, Carol normally does an allocation adjustment in February. That's going to affect your 15% set aside. Please remember, you must go in and do a budget amendment and set aside the difference due to that allocation adjustment. We've had a couple of districts that failed to do this and spent all of their money, and now they're having to pay funds back to the state so that those funds can be applied towards the mandatory set aside. Your significant disproportionality is children 3 through 12. It is kids that are not on an IEP and kids who are on an IEP. You must use the set aside money to address the specific area that you were found significantly disproportionate in. On your budget for your 623 early intervening budget, there is a tab that has an analysis summary. You must type into that analysis a summary the ways that you've discovered significant disproportionality, how you're addressing that, what's going to correct it, and so forth. And that must all be approved through the data IDEA, the special ed data division up here, which is Ginger. She is meeting with the districts that were found to be significantly disproportionate. Some are repeats, some are not. Once she has given us the thumbs up, then we can start approving claims. But until she has approved your analysis summary, no claims will be paid on your CCEIS. Couple of the ways that you can do it for, you cannot do it for anything that you've done in the past. You can use it on something that you're expanding. You just can't use the monies for things that were done in the past. Cannot use it to provide services already required by law. Must supplement, not supplant, that goes for all federal dollars. And it will not reduce your maintenance of effort. You will not qualify for the 50% reduction if you are found significantly disproportionate. The 50% reduction for maintenance of effort is if a district receives a larger allocation current year than previous year, you can use 50% of the difference to reduce your maintenance buffer. But you cannot qualify for that if you're significantly disproportionate. Any questions on maintenance of effort, on CEIS, CCEIS, assurances, LEA agreements? Is it all pretty clear as mud? Okay, we're going to talk just a little bit on the co-op interlocal. Not sure if we have anyone in attendance that is in a co-op or an interlocal. A co-op is several districts together combining their funds to pay for services. That helps small schools who may not be able to afford someone full-time. They can be in a co-op where maybe services are divvied out or gone from one district to the next district, and they all combine to pay that person's salary. So co-ops have their benefits or have their needs. And that's basically what it would be, is just multiple districts banding together. You're still required to monitor that child to make sure the services are done, make sure yeah, whatever my word was for that one. Right? So you are still responsible for that child, although you might send them to another district for some service. If you are in a co-op, we sent out a new application this year that had to include your ARP funds. This is your 628 ARP and your 643 ARP. You not only have to tell us the amount of funds you want moved to the co-op for your IDEA 621, 641, but you must tell us if you want your ARP funds transferred as well. Each LEA still has to do the assurances in the LEA agreement. If it's an interlocal, they must do the assurances, but they're not required to do the LEA agreement. That falls on the individual districts. You're still responsible for FAPE. We have submitted the transfer of the co-op interlocal funds to our programmer. I'm not quite sure when exactly she can get that done. We have asked that it be a priority. So as soon as we can get those funds moved over, then the lead co-ops can begin completing their budgets. Submitting your expenditure reports for reimbursement. You must do a budget to start with. Also, please keep in mind, all federal dollars are reimbursement only. You cannot submit an expenditure report for something that has not taken place yet. There are little exceptions to the rules. If you have a question, please contact your finance specialist. They can help you. The first thing, the one thing that pops out, and Carol, Ashley, Janet, something might pop out in your head too, is if you're buying an airline ticket. I think there's little exceptions on how that can be done, because you actually have to buy the tickets. And you can't do a reimbursement, but that's something you can talk to your finance specialist with. That may be something you do with your state and local dollars. I don't know. Once you have completed your budget, you submit it to your finance specialist. They will review it. They'll make sure that everything is necessary and reasonable. They'll approve it. And then you can start doing your reimbursements. Again, you will do a separate budget for your art funding. So that gives you, if you're only going to do flow through in preschool, that gives you 2 new budgets to do this year for IDEA special ed. If you're significantly disproportionate, that gives you 3 budgets to do in addition to what you've done in the past. It could be up to 5 new districts, depending on how your district does on the private, preschool, private, and such. But there are a total of 5 new budgets this year. You just may not need all 5. If you're doing a reimbursement on your claims, that's also submitted online with the single sign-on grant management. Please make sure that your DUNS number is current and is not expired, valid. We cannot, by law, pay any claims if your DUNS number is not current and valid. You also will have to attach specific documents depending on what it is you're submitting your reimbursement with. But you must submit all the required invoices and receipts. Some of the supporting documentation could include the requisition, the receipts, the invoice. If it is a receipt for Walmart, you might want to jot on there what program, if you're splitting it between programs being paid for. If it is a Visa receipt, you must write the person's name of who it's covering and the vendor. And these things are also listed in our federal programs joint reimbursement procedures policies. And those are found also on the OCAS website. We have copies that we can send, and we'll put those on our website as well in federal and finance. Your invoices must match dollar for dollar. If it's not got anything written on saying 500 of this invoice is paid out of 621. If it's $1,000 receipt, then it should match what you typed into the GMS at $1,000. You must upload all of this in your expenditure report when you're placing it in, typing it into the GMS. You upload a file. When you upload that file, please do not use special characters. If you use one of these characters in the naming of your file, the system will not let us open that file. We're going to have to return it. It's going to get rejected back to the district. You're going to be on your toes watching for when it comes back, because you're going to have to fix it. You'll have to upload a new PDF and then resubmit it. So you're slowing down your payment by doing that. So please make sure you do not use a special character in your title name. If an authorized representative is signing it, the expenditure report, which is your summary and detail report, it must be signed by the superintendent, but if the district has an authorized representative assigned, elected, appointed, they can sign it as well. But in doing that, you've uploaded that information in your federal programs application under your board authorization. We actually have access to go in and view that. You would click on letters and it's going to pop up. You put this on your school letterhead, and it is telling us that that person is authorized on behalf of the district to submit this stuff. Again, this is things that's stated in the federal programs. We also ask that districts submit at least one claim by the end of November. You should do one claim by the end of November for each division. If you don't, you'll be contacted. The purpose of this is so that we can have time to review it to see that you are on point. So that if there are issues, we can contact you and you've not gone all year submitting things that have been wrong. We can nip them in the bud, as Barney Fife would say. If you have a claim that's been returned for whatever reason, we're going to attach a note telling you why that was returned. We have a lot of districts call and say, you returned my claim and I don't know why. This will give you a walkthrough of how you can review those notes. The status is going to say return for changes. You're going to go into your expenditure report menu, click on which report. You might have 3, 4, 5 reports down here. So look at which one has the returned status. Select it. Click on the view summary. Going to take you to this page. You're going to select the line that has your programmer that rejected. You're going to click on the review checklist. Then you're going to see this screen, which is going to tell you exactly why the claim has been returned. If you don't see this screen, you're going to be looking at your budget itself. If you're looking at your budget, that tells us that your pop-up blockers are on. You need to take your pop-up blockers off, and you would be able to review the message informing you of why it is incorrect. Again, for a list of proper uses or codes, you can go into the OCAS website. You can get all of those. That'll be your function code, your object codes, and give you guidance on what you need to use where. Function code of 1000 tells us it's instruction. Object code of 100 tells us that it's a salary. If we see a function code of 2150, we know that's speech. Maybe you contract for that service, so the object code would be 300. If in the explanation box, you might have coded something to 2150, 300, and in your definition explanation box, you put instructional supplies. That's going to tell us right there that you've not used the proper codings. Your supplies would not be coded to 300, they would be coded to object 600. And Carol is going to walk you through all of that when she walks you through how to complete a budget. End of the year closeout. This is something that everyone should have already completed. Closeouts were required by September 1st. The purpose of a closeout, it lets us know you are through spending your funds. You're not going to have any more expenditures to submit. And it's going to move any unspent funds over to the next fiscal year. That's how you get your carryover. It's a simple process, almost like doing an expenditure report plan. If you have coded anybody to an object of 100, you must upload one, just one, time and effort report on your closeout. We don't need to see all of them. We just need to see one. We want to see that you are getting all the required information. There is not a standard form for this to use. You can make up your own form, but we do have samples on our website. You're welcome to copy those off and use them, or to make your own as long as you have all the right information. And this lets us see if you're doing all of that correctly. So we can kind of, again, Bonnie Fife it and nip it in the bud if you're not. Also, there is a vendor performance review. There's a little link on your closeout. You must complete a vendor performance review form. Anyone who is coded Object 300 and anyone, if you have more than one vendor. So a time and effort is just for one, so we can view all. But your vendor performance, if you have a contract service with 3 different vendors, then you're going to have to upload a performance review for each vendor. Any questions? Everybody got their closeouts done? The only ones who should not have a closeout done at this time is districts who have submitted a late claim. Late claim means you, for whatever reason, did not get it done on time. And now it has to go to the board downstairs and have approval before we are allowed to pay that. You cannot do a closeout if you have a late claim. Okay, on your time and effort. We'll just kind of talk a little bit about that. Anyone who is paid with federal dollars must do a time and effort report. That is across the board, meaning if it's in federal programs, if you're in 21st century, whoever has federal dollars and you're paying a salary, you must do a time and effort report. There are 2 types of a time and effort report. It's got to reflect the actual time spent. If you are a full-time employee, you must do a time and effort report semi-annually. If you are a part-time employee, you must do a time and effort report monthly. I stated there were 2 types. There is a single cost objective. Is a person who is doing one duty, might be paid with several different sources, but doing one duty could be a single cost objective. This is an old form, but it'll kind of help give you some guidance here that you've worked 100% under whatever. It no longer has to be signed by the employee. It would be preferred that it be signed by the employee, but it is not mandatory for that. It will be signed by the superintendent or the supervisor of that employee. Or there is a multiple cost objective. This would be completed for employees who have different jobs. If you fill out a multiple time and effort report, however your time is distributed, it must total 100%. If you attach a time and effort report and it is showing distribution of time 29% and nothing else, then this is going to be returned if it's a sample in your closeout because it's incorrect. It must total 100%. We will only ask to see or view the one that you have attached, time and effort report you've attached in your closeout. But if any reason that the State Department comes to your district, we would then ask to view all of your time and effort reports. That's why you only need to upload one. Okay, we have our special projects sum up still. We still have project 613, which is professional development. This was invented or intended to assist districts for professional development opportunities that may otherwise have not had funds for. 613 has specific events that you can attend specific conferences. On the application, you will see a list of those when you go into complete your application. You will not see an allocation for this project, but you can still complete the application. You can still put in the costs. Once we have approved it, we will allocate those funds so that you can move on with your claims once it has been completed. This is just telling you some of the required information you need to do. Some of the reimbursements could be mileage, it could be a substitute teacher cost so that you could go. Registrations, hotels for some. COVID kind of put a dent in this last year. Very little was used because everything had gone virtual. But it is still here. It is still ready to go for FY22. We will not reimburse individuals and we will not reimburse per diem. So that's basically our project 613. Nothing has changed. If you have a conference or an event on that you're wanting to attend that is not listed on project 613, this is where project 615 can assist you. Project 615, again, is a professional development, and it does give districts an allocation. The purpose of this is for professional development activities. It's to help with positive outcomes for your special needs students. Some of the examples that you can use this for. Some districts might want to band together. If a speaker is kind of costly, if their fee is kind of high, you might look at some of the other districts within your area to see if they all want to band together and pay for a specific speaker. There's some really good speakers out there. You can do it for purchasing books for your staff on professional development. So these are just kind of some examples of what you can use the funding for. Again, you will get an allocation. You will complete the application online through the GMS. And you must complete a budget by December 1st, or you will lose your allocation. You will forfeit whatever funds were allocated to you. I will pull those back and I will reallocate those out to the districts who are using Project 615 money. You may not know how you want to spend it yet. You may not know of a conference or something. That's okay. You can go ahead and make your budget. You can always amend it down the road when you find something that you're specifically wanting to do with those funds. But if you do not do a budget, you will forfeit your allocation if not completed by December 1st. We do not have Project 617 anymore. It's gone, it's out the window. But we still have Project 616, certification examination. The purpose of this is to help pay for the examination charge. One exam per individual. You must show a need for the area that you're having the person become certified in. You must upload your board policy. The purpose for that is because some board policies will not allow this because it is classified as salary. And if your board policy does not allow it, you cannot use Project 616 funds. This also is not an allocation given to each district. Excuse me. You would complete the online application and we would go in and add the allocation amount to it once you've submitted it. Again, this is just telling you that you need them to take a specific area. They must pass and show proof when you submit your claim that they pass. And again, it's one per individual. We have had an increase in Project 616 use from when it first made its debut. I do not have the figures on hand though to say how much, but it has increased. Know that it's there if you need it. Any question on those special projects? 613, 615, 616, and no more 617. Okay, we'll move on to high needs. Carol, everything okay in the chat box?
Everything's good.
Great. You people know all this stuff. So on your high needs, tier 1, tier 2. On tier 1, that is out of state placement for kiddos who IEP team has determined that an out of state facility would better perform for that kid. Tier 2 is for an in-state kiddo, but the tier 2 in-state, it must be costing at least 3 times the average per pupil expenditure. So if the per pupil expenditure was $7,000, this kiddo should be costing you at least $21,000 to qualify. And you must have at least 10% of your previous year's allocation for all your high needs students that it went towards. Funds for the tier 1, we as state of Oklahoma have elected, we are given the option of setting aside money for the high need student. The mandatory amount we can set aside is 2.5 million. The state of Oklahoma chooses to set aside the $2.5 million. The way we've divided it, because out-of-state placement is such a high cost, we allocate 1.5 million of that set aside to tier 1. The remaining $1 million goes towards the tier 2. So when you apply for tier 2, neither one are 100% reimbursement. But when you apply for tier 2, depending on how many kiddos are submitted, how many are awarded, will determine the reimbursement percentage. Sometimes it's, could be high, sometimes it might be low, but every little penny helps in reimbursement back to the district. You can get the applications on our website. They are due by the 4th Friday of July. We review, we notify districts if they've qualified, if they haven't qualified, and the percent that they will be reimbursed. It is an application online for the tier 2. It is reimbursement online for the high needs tier 1. And then high needs tier 2 would have reimbursement online through Genius as well. Lindsay Nicole Henry Scholarship. This is a scholarship that went into law in August 26 in 2011. It is for the purpose of allowing parents to enroll their kids in a private school. The kiddo must have been in a public school the prior year. I don't talk a whole lot on Lindsay Nicole Henry. We do have specialists here in the office who deal with Lindsay Nicole Henry. But as a district, you must make parents aware that this is available. And applications must be submitted by December the 1st. When Lindsay Nicole Henry began in FY 2011, there were only 53 students enrolled. Now there is 1,197 and still climbing. Any questions? Questions, comments, concerns, something we didn't talk about, something you want to talk deeper about? We've got about 10 minutes before break time, so shout out, type in the chat box. Any questions, comments, concerns? We do have here finance resources. You can go to our website and find all of these resources listed. There's a closeout PowerPoint. Some districts kind of struggle in doing the closeout. There's the art guidance. Applications are there, questions and answer sheets. We also have our due dates listed here. The GMS normally opens up the first Friday in May. That allows, that allows districts to go ahead and begin working on their assurances. Once those are completed, they can begin working on your LEA agreement. As we stated earlier, both of these are due prior to July 1, so you need to make sure by June 30th you've got this submitted. The fourth Friday of July is when you must submit your applications for your high needs, tier 1, tier 2. October 31st is the due date for having your IDEA and your ARP applications submitted. Last day to file a claim is June 3rd if you want to be paid in that fiscal year. Expenditure reports, closeouts. Lindsay Nicole Henry by December 1. If you don't do your 615 application, December 1, you're going to forfeit that money, and you do not want to lose that money if you can use it. And here is your finance specialist. Nathan is our special project. He is over 613. So any questions, comments, concerns that you have, you can address those to Nathan. Stacy and Crystal are our Lindsay Nicole Henry specialists. Any questions, comments, concerns you have towards Lindsay Nicole, you can contact Stacy or Crystal. For all your other finance needs, budget approvals, claim submissions and approvals, questions, you can contact your finance specialist. We do still telework part of the week at home. One of the best ways to contact would probably be through email, but we do have it set up to where some of our computers, if they want to cooperate, you can call our office phone and it will ring to our computer. Some of us who are not technically educated, I can still manage this, but again, emails are probably your best bet in contacting us. Please keep in mind, we have lots of people. It's a very busy time of the year. Don't expect a response to your email within 5 minutes. We have tons of them coming in, so please be patient with us, but we will get back with you. We will answer your question. Just give us a little extra time since we're teleworking. Comments, questions, concerns, anything going on? Anything in the chat box, Carol? Does Carol have everybody recorded as to who has attended today? We want to make sure we have the districts all accounted for to give that extra point in your data, district data BDPs for Ginger, so. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. It's going to give us time to shut down my PowerPoint, get Carol ready to walk you through the budget. If you have your budget already, just needing it approval, go ahead and start typing your district in to the chat box. We have Ashley and Janet who is going to be reviewing those while Carol is giving her walkthrough presentation. I'll kind of be watching the chat box so that we can address any questions in a timely manner for that.
Okay, I have a suggestion. As people are ready for their budgets to be approved, when you type your name, your district name in the chat box, type budget ready. We have so many, just letting us know that they're here, that it's gonna be hard to determine. So if you'll just type your school name and budget ready.
Okay. All righty, well, let's take a quick break. Let's be back here in about 10 minutes. I'm showing it 10:10. I think the agenda was showing from 10:15 to 10:30. So if we want to stay on the agenda, let's just be back here by 10:30. Go ahead and stay signed in. But you can stay muted and you can turn your camera off at this point if you'd like to do that as well. At 10:30, Carol will come back on and she will start walking you through your budgets and how to complete those. So have your questions ready for the people who are new to this, or the people who kind of struggle a little bit. And even people who have done it for years, we have found still have little issues here and there. So we will see you back at 10:30. Thank you.
If your budget has already been approved, please do not include it on the list on the chat, because there are a couple that already are approved. And then if you need it approved, or even if it's already been submitted but it hasn't been reviewed yet or approved, then you can put it on there and put that, budget is ready or whatever. Thank you.
I guess.
Welcome back, everyone. We are going to walk through our budget, just kind of a step by step. Does anyone have any questions before we start? Okay, do I have any volunteers from any of the districts to let me use your application to walk through?
Carol, you can use Mindell.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so as you go into your single sign-on. Okay, hold on just a second, everyone. Okay, I should be back. Janet had me loud and I could hear me double. Okay, as you go into the singular sign-on, you'll go into the grants management and expenditure reporting. Everyone can see my screen, correct? I'm gonna assume yes. I see a head nod bobbing too. Okay, you'll then, I don't think you click, oh, hold on. Let me go back. Let me push the button you're not supposed to push. Okay, here we go. If you will notice, right down here on this main screen, we have our dashboard of important messages. So anytime we have anything important coming up, like our hands-on budget workshops, they are listed right here. So be sure and read these. And they do change often. Anytime that we have any messages, we put them right there. Okay. So I am going to go into Midwest City. And it's going to tell me it's not a district. Nope, it did. Okay. So this is your GMS Access Select page. You will see your IDA consolidated application, LEA agreement, your assurances are up here. Okay, if you, like you hear us talking about ARP funding, and let's say you don't see that on your list, it would be down here under available IDEA. This is where you create your budgets. So if you don't see them on your list up here, they haven't been created yet, they'll be down here. This screen is kind of your information screen. It tells you what applications you have. It will tell you your status. Like this application is open but has not been submitted yet. The 615 has been submitted for review and it's not approved by me yet. The ARP is not submitted. LEA agreement, final approved. Notice that that date of June 17th. That means as soon as the OCAS data is set, then this LEA agreement will need to be amended. Let's say your date was more like 11/15, then chances are you have resubmitted it after, and it would be an amendment.
Carol, can you explain that to me a little bit? That
I
LA
can't.
agreement's gonna have
On the
to.
LEA agreement, after your OCAS data is set in stone, you have to go into your LEA agreement.
Okay,
So open,
okay,
have to go to this maintenance of effort tab.
okay.
Have to make sure that the numbers exactly match
Yes.
what
Okay.
is on your OCAS data.
Yes. I think you helped me with that last year too.
Right. Yeah, and on here, like if everything's in the perfect ideal world and your 21 is equal to or greater than your 20,
Mhm.
you will just put exactly what's on the form. If it is not, but you met by per capita and your per capita is greater, you would erase all three of these lines and put the numbers in the next line down. But let's say your 21 is not as great as your 20, but you know why, and you know where your exceptions are, and you know that 3 teachers left that had been there for 20 years and you replaced them with new teachers that cost less, then you would put the actual figure from OCAS right here. Then you would put the exceptions in the exception line. And the numbers down here, these two will still exactly match what is on your OCAS data. And then 22 is a budget. You know that it is equal to or greater than 21. So it will be equal to or greater than the number that's in your 21 on your OCAS data. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay. So we're going to open up your IDA consolidated application. Now, before I forget, we're going to go right back out. Eventually, you will have allocation notices up here. We are changing servers, so those are a little bit behind, but they will eventually be there. Now, back to open up the consolidated app. So this is just kind of an overview of the entire program of the entire consolidated application. It also gives you all of our names and phone numbers. We do telework. We each telework 2 days a week, and we're in the office 3 days a week. Everybody but me, I believe, has a cute little program on their computer that when our phone rings in our office, it rings on the laptop. However, I got a new laptop because mine died during all of this. And I don't have the cute little program yet. I'm pretty sure I have sent my cell phone number to all of my districts. I also answer the emails right away. So next is our contact information. If you open this up and you look right here and the person listed under your superintendent is not the superintendent, go change your assurances. We try to catch it as we go through, but we do not always. Also, if the superintendent's email address is your email address and you are not the superintendent, go amend the assurances. This also asks for the grant manager, the financial contact, special education director. If you are not one of these people, but you're still wanting to receive the emails on if anything's rejected or approved, you'll put your email address right here. You can list up to 5 extra emails. The next tab is the CEIS, CCEIS. This is early intervening services. You can use early intervening services voluntarily, or if you are significantly disproportionate, then you must use them mandatorily. This does tell you the amount of your allocation for 621, 641. It breaks down the 15% of both of those, which tells you how much you can spend if you choose to voluntarily, or how much you must spend if you have to mandatorily. The next tab is our equitable share flow through 621. This is on our private schools. Any private schools that you have, you will complete this tab if you have private schools in your district that serve students 3 to 21. If you do not, you will put not applicable. Last week we had many questions on where the numbers come from in the private schools. If they come from the private schools end of the year report. My answer is it's based on the private schools information from last October 1. We don't have like the number of students with disabilities in private schools. Here, like how we allocate that to you is like we allocate all other money by the total enrollment. So we do not break that down into the students with disabilities. So that number is the number of students with disabilities at the private school from last October. If you have any money that you transfer into early intervening services, so the CEIS or the CCEIS, you will put that amount right here. If you have no private schools, click not applicable. If you do have private schools, list the private schools. The next tab is your equitable share preschool. This is if you have any students with disabilities in preschools ages 3 to 5. Same story last year, October. If you have none, not applicable. It will down here at the bottom give you an amount that you will need to put in your allocations tab if you do have private schools. The next tab is your school-wide tab. There have never been any districts in the state that have decided to move their money over to a school-wide program, since you do still have to meet all the IDA qualifications. So if you'll click not applicable at the bottom. The next tab is your allocations tab. And while we don't have our allocation notices ready, this is how you know what your allocation is. Oh, and Karen says that the allocation notices might be there. So hopefully they are. I know I had an email on it, but I didn't read the email. That's honest. If you get to the allocations tab and you do not see rollover, then you either haven't done your carry out or carry over, or you have done your closeout and it's been disapproved and you haven't noticed. So if you do not see your money that you think that you carried over, go in and check last year's closeout. Down here at the bottom, if you do have money from private schools, you will need to put those amounts here. So this will come directly from the equitable share flow through tab. This will come directly from the equitable share preschool tab. If you have money here, it would come directly from the CEIS, CCEIS tab. The next button on here is submit, but we're not ready to submit yet. Once you get here, remember that this is a drop-down menu to your top right corner where it says IDA Consolidated. You will drop down to one of the programs. So we'll go to Flow Through 621. And this is where you tell us how you're going to budget your money. So you will go to your budget. Up here at the top, it does give you kind of a somewhat helpful, somewhat not at all helpful paid to date amounts, but it's only by the object code. It doesn't break it down to function object code. This is your total amount available for budgeting. Then you will, and this is good. So you will, on your function codes, you'll do 1,000, 100. You'll pick your function objects here. Here you have, it's a very brief explanation. So personnel salary, OTPT salaries. I can tell you right now, Janelle, that has to be changed. OT is 2130, PT is 2170, so those cannot be in the same category.
Oh. We will get that changed.
Just so you know.
Thank
You're welcome. And as you go down through your benefits, contracts, registration fees. Hint, registration fees are an 800, not a 300. Use 600 supplies. And indirect cost is not listed here. So anyone who is looking at that, your indirect costs will have to be down here. It is not actually budgeted in up here. It's purely right here. This does tell you the total allocation available for budgeting, your allowable costs. So like if you have equipment or supply or equipment, that amount does come out of that. It gives you your indirect cost rate, the maximum amount of indirect costs that you can budget, and then the amount that you choose to budget. If you budget indirect costs, you'll put right here. You will not include it in this upper part of the budget. A good word of advice is if you are going to budget any indirect cost, I would budget all of your indirect costs, whether you use it or not. It does make it really hard for your encumbrance clerk if it's not all budgeted. It's obviously up to you. It's just a really good idea. So if you have any 100s on the list, you will purely go to your personnel tab.
Carol,
And this is where you will tell us about your personnel. That's why you can be very vague on the original
Carol.
tab. Yes,
can I ask a question?
sure.
On that indirect cost, did you say it's a good idea to budget it or not to?
It's really up to you whether you budget it or don't budget it. However, if you're going to budget it, it's a good idea to budget 100% of what you can budget, whether you spend it or not, or whether you claim it or not.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Well, and let me tell you a little bit about why. Because when you go to do your claims, if you don't budget the entire amount, then it gives you a derived rate. And so when you go to do your claims, it's really hard for the encumbrance clerk to get the exact amount based on the derived rate that it will take. And then at the end, it kind of sometimes is wonky with the closeouts as well. Okay, so on the personnel tab, when you first go into it, if you have a lot of the same personnel from one year to the next, there is a button up here somewhere when you first go into it that says bring over from previous year that you can click and your money will automatically go, all your people will automatically go over. And then you could delete the ones you needed to delete. The status over here, we do not use that in special education. So do not panic about the unverifieds, the verifieds. We don't look at that at all. That is the process federal programs uses to verify it to school personnel. We hand look up everyone in school personnel as your claims come in to make sure that they are on school personnel. So you will put the first name, the last name. If a teacher is a teacher, you must use the full teacher number. And then the function object areas certification, which this is great. BSMS, mild, moderate, severe, profound, para, assistant. We're pretty open to what you really put in the column. The position, this is perfect, sped teacher, para. The flow through salary without benefits. So you only put here what you're claiming on budget. We add up all of these amounts and make sure that they add back to what's on the original budget sheet. So the first thing I would do is sort this by function object code. I would add those up and make sure they match the budget. The one, a really important thing when you're filling this out is to make sure there are no blanks. If you leave this column blank, let's say you think, oh, my para is not certified, so I'm not going to put anything in this column. When you go to save at the bottom, it deletes them all and will then give you a nice blank page that you're really frustrated about. And I totally understand that. If you have a teacher, if you have a para, you will use those last 4 digits of the social. But again, if it is a teacher, you have to use the 6-digit teacher number. Okay, so from here, we would go back to our budget. If you have any 300s, that is backed up right here on the contracted services tab. The amount here has to match the amount here. So on this page, you will go in and tell us each of your contracts that you have, the function object code you're using for those contracts, the type of service they are, and the amount of that contract. Once again, this number up here will match this number down here. This is also anyone listed on this page. When you do your closeout, you do have to have a vendor performance report. There is a link to a blank vendor performance report right here on this page. If you have any equipment, which means an item over $5,000 and a life expectancy of more than 2 years, then you will complete this tab. Any 700 that you have budgeted must be listed right here. We don't get 700s very often, but if you do, then it's listed right here. The number at the top right here must be equal to the number in this gray box down here. The next tab is technology. It's the one that's a little bit different. Your technology can be coded to 600 or 700. So this tab does not have to match this tab down here. Also, not all of your 600s would be technology. If you buy file folders, those definitely aren't technology. So right here, you're just listing the technology that you do have on your budget. The numbers do not have to match. Your next tab is your other expenses tab. Anything coded to 400, 500, or 800, you have to tell us about right here on this page. That's how you back it up. Tell us what you're doing with it. Tell us why you're doing it. Tell us what it's for. This is where your registration fees, which are 800s, are. If you're paying money to a co-op, that's a 500. Or any other LEA for any reason, that's a 500. This amount up here does have to match this amount down here. This gets really important when you're filling out a 615 budget, because this tab is really used a lot in a 615 budget. So remember, this number must match this number. So when you have completed that whole budget, backed up all of your money, told us where all the money's going, what you're spending it on, why you're spending it, then you are ready to go to your next budget and complete it. Most of you just have 621, 641, unless you have private schools or RCCEIS. And you will complete your 641 in the exact same fashion. So your 628 is your ARP money is an identical mirror application to this application. Every tab is exactly the same. The wording is exactly the same. So once you get everything complete, then you will go back up to your ID. Well, let's look at your earlier meeting, just in case any of you use it voluntarily or any of you are mandatorily. It does have a different tab on it. It has our analysis summary. You must complete this. It is approved by Ginger and the data team before finance does actually approve it also. Okay, after all this, you'll go back up to your IDA consolidated page. And then you are at your submit tab. And you would be able to submit your budget. Do we have any questions so far? What is considered indirect cost? Indirect cost is it's basically an administrative charge. Some districts use it, some don't. It is a administrative cost to run the program. It's one of those that usually the administration likes to see indirect cost used. Usually the special ed person doesn't because they want to use all the money. It's just however your school chooses. And when you claim it, it's just claimed as indirect cost. So it is not tied specifically to any one thing. Did that answer that question at all? Okay, so we're gonna go back out. We've talked about the LEA agreement. On, like, here's the 615. I'm gonna open it. Once again, you got your overview, your contact information, program detail. This is where you tell us what you're planning to use the money on. This appears to be a very broad application to meet the December 1 deadline. This will show the allocations. Hold on, let's go back to program detail. Then we have the S activities. You'll tell us which S activities you are planning on meeting. Your staffing and who's in charge of the staffing. Your allocations, it does tell you your allocation amount. Your budget tab. You will tell us your budget. Then you have the same, you have the personnel tab. If you notice, she did not have anything budgeted to 100. A lot of people, if you have substitutes, those will be coded to 100. I do believe, honestly, Midwest City does a contract for their substitutes.
That is correct, Carol.
Right. And then on your, if you have 300s, you will budget them right here. Your other expenses, see how this top number does meet this bottom number and everything is backed up. So it is all good. And then the ARP allocation. I know people have a lot of questions about ARP. It's a separate allocation given to us by Washington. Several states chose to do it several different ways. We did choose to do a mirror application. You can use it on anything you use 621 for, but your best bet is to use it for one-time money, whether that be buses, playground equipment for special needs children, curriculum that you've wanted and couldn't afford, transition services, kitchen that you've always dreamed of but couldn't have. You know, the sky's the limit, or your allocation's the limit, I guess I should say. Are there any questions on any of it? Now, I know y'all have questions. Assurances, they're up here. Like I said, a big issue is going in to complete that and not getting the superintendent in as the superintendent or the superintendent's email as the superintendent's email. Let's look and see if the allocation notices are here.
That's what her message said.
It does look like the allocation notices are now available. Now, I don't see an ARP allocation available, but hey, one's better than none at this point.
Button. The program said the IDEA notices have.
Hey, Karen, you're not on mute.
Yeah, I'm talking to y'all.
Okay, what did you say?
That the allocation notices have not yet been released for ARP.
Okay. Are there any questions that anyone has? Or are there any schools that do not have their budgets completed that need help? Janelle, we need a phone call.
I need to talk to you. What did I do?
Very few things, just that OTPT part
Yeah.
and your school teacher numbers.
Yes. Okay. We're fixing those now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you not have any private schools?
Yeah, we do. I'm getting those numbers.
Okay.
From our person that's in charge of our DD and our private schools. So we'll,
Okay.
yeah. But other than that, it looks pretty good, huh?
Yep. Yep. Okay, so as you get your budget done, if you want it approved today, we will be approving those. As you get your budget done, just put it in the chat. We will, and we're a little bit early. Karen, do you want to go ahead and break for lunch and still come back at 12:30? Or what do you want to do?
Do we have any questions, something we need to go over, maybe a little more in depth? I mean, there's been very few questions and that's a little scary because we get tons of phone calls. Don't be ashamed, don't be afraid, we don't bite. You have our undivided attention. If we can't handle it, I will send Carol to your district. Now,
Hey,
she,
Carol, this is Chad
Yes.
Smith from Prague. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Hey, we're looking at buying some technology that we haven't had. We've outdated technology to replace outdated technology in our special ed classrooms and in our
Uh-huh.
severe and profound classrooms. Does it matter as far as what we buy, as long as we buy, whether it be Chromebooks or iPads or a combination? Do we have to spend it all together, or it could be anything?
Anything?
And that
Just
will
be
still
sure
fall
that-
under our technology, under our IDEA or our ARP, correct?
Right. The only thing that you ever have to worry about on that is excess cost. Say you have bought every student in your school a Chromebook and you're buying Chromebooks for your special ed students out of a separate money, then that's gonna not go over well in your excess cost. But with you upgrading this year, and I'm sure you probably bought almost everything else last year,
Right.
you should be good.
So of all the kids, we did buy Chromebooks for our entire elementary this year. Through, I'm pretty sure it came through ESSER funds of some kind. I'm not 100% positive there, but we were wanting to buy different stuff for our special ed kids, a little bit more like touch active with our kids. How is that going to run into my problems with my other stuff? I mean, they're not the same product, they're a different thing.
You should be good.
That we want the
Just
word
as
touch.
just be sure at the end of the year when the OCAS excess cost report comes out, just make sure that it's saying met on both sides
Okay.
as normal.
And it doesn't matter who our vendor is. I mean, it could be anything from our school people to,
No, and that's a good question because if you don't know who the vendor is yet, you can put TBA or TBD.
Okay.
And then go back and put in the vendor.
Right.
We
part of
do
our
have
problem
several-
is Chromebooks you can't find. They're hard to get right now.
Yeah, I've heard
And
that.
yeah. And so we're trying to figure out cost versus can we get them here the next 3 months, kind of a deal.
Right. Right.
All right. Thank you for your help.
You're welcome. And we do have several schools that have asked about buses with that ARP money. And of course, you have to put bids out. So that is a good question on if you're putting bids out, put TBD on your vendor, and then you can come back and amend that and let us know. That way we're not holding you up on being able to approve the money. And Chad, you're in trouble. I could come to your district pretty easy. I'm a Lincoln County girl.
Carol,
Carol, can you?
We're ready, hopefully.
Carol, could you tell or give us some ideas of what we could spend the 641 money on?
The 641, I
Mhm.
can tell you what, most people use 641 for speech. It says speech in 3 to 5 year olds. That is like, I would say 90% of 641 money is spent on speech.
So for the speech pathologist, we could just pay for one of their salaries?
Uh-huh.
Because we have 8 in our district.
Right, and I'm sure you would have enough 3 to 5 year olds that they're seeing and evaluating that it would a salary would be fine.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
would be my question.
All we heard was be my question.
Carol, that same process for the art money in 641, is there something for those young kids that you would suggest?
No, Once again, you can use a piece of it on speech. Anything you would spend your normal 641 money on. Whether that be supplies and activities for those 3 to 5 year olds.
So we already pay our speech path here out of our 641, our regular 641. So I'm trying to think of, and it can be any other grade up to what grade that we can spend those kids on? Is it kindergarten?
It's just 3 to 5 year olds.
So can we pay part of our kindergarten, since we have special education teacher starts in kindergarten, can we pay some of her salary out of that? That's the new one that we've hired?
How do you, okay, I'm gonna be tricky. How do you normally pay her salary?
Well, in the past, our old one, we've had 2 now.
Mhm.
So the other one, we've always paid out of general fund or just regular funding, but we hired a new one. And we haven't paid anything. We've never paid her before. She's new to the district. Can we pay
Here's
part of
the
that?
thing. If you were paying her salary with state and local funds, I would continue to pay her salary with state and local funds, so you do not screw up your maintenance of effort.
Right, for
And
sure.
therefore, I would not pay a portion of it out of your ARP.
Okay,
It's not that you can't, it's that you don't want to screw up your state and local funding.
right. So even if she's new, like a new special ed teacher this year, would it mess up your maintenance stuff there?
Right, so your maintenance of effort funding, if you paid someone last year out of that, then you have to continue that level of state and local funding.
Correct. And we're doing that with the old teacher. We were just wondering if that $3,000 or $4,000, it's not much for us, you know, $3,000 or
Right.
$4,000 to the new one. But all right, thank you for your help.
You're welcome.
Carol, this is Corey Holland at Cash.
Uh-huh.
I just want to make sure we're getting different prices on another special ed bus, and they're quite expensive, as you can imagine. So I was wanting to make sure we were going to use partial from our tier 2 funds and then code the other to the 628, the remainder balance. Is that an issue?
Not at all.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Carol,
Yes.
this is Sharman. Hey, this
Uh-huh.
is, I guess, probably just pretty district specific and not something that will help everyone, but looking at last year's, I had a speech teacher that we had listed on the personnel under the 621 flow through, but we specifically pay her out of 641 and she wasn't listed there. Should she be on the 641 personnel and not the 621?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Carol, this is Corey again at Cash. I'm sorry.
You're good.
So on the 628, we're taking your advice. We're not putting that on personnel, but what I have done is I have met with the speech teachers and some of our severe and profound classes, and some of the things that they're requesting. I just want to probably run some of those by you before I put them in the budget, because I think if you just look at it, it looks like, why are you buying that? But it's definitely specific things that they need that we haven't been able to buy. And so some of it's furniture items and things like that for the kids with the disabilities. I mean, you don't see any problems with any of that.
No, that's what this money's for. The things that you have needed, would love to have and haven't been able to have. Whether it's a safety swing for a playground, whether it is, it's those things that you don't get to buy every day.
Okay, so here's and I put you on the spot. So like at our high school level, we had a use of a kitchen, and now they have to go across campus and they can only use it a certain hour of the day. So we were looking at like a refrigerator, stove, those kinds of things, so we could put it in the classroom next to them. Do you see any issue?
Absolutely. For transition services, absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Sean Hoover from Cordell, are you still with us? And why are you lost? Help me know how to find you.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, why are you lost? What's going on?
Well, most of mine's into budgets. The superintendent gave me a different number than what's actually in here, and so I'll have to go ask him what the real number is. On teacher registration, I've got the teacher registration number, but what is the areas of certification or teacher registry?
So it could be anything from mild, moderate to.
Oh, it's
severe
mild moderate. So
behavioral.
is that 2507?
We don't really do the number, just type in what fits there.
Okay.
Works for me.
Okay, and then I tried to save it, but it's got a
Uh-huh.
red line. I said delete it, but it won't delete the row.
Okay.
Do I need to
If,
put stuff in there before it'll delete it?
yes.
And it doesn't matter
And if
what.
you have any blanks on the line, it won't. You have to have every blank full before it'll say.
delete it.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Boom, it did it. All right, I understand that.
Okay.
Save
Carol, can we do construction with art money?
You can, it has to be pre-approved.
Okay.
So if that's something you're interested in doing, I guess set up an email so we can look at that approval, because we're not technically sure who approves it.
Okay.
We will find out together if that's something you're interested in doing.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, okay, I've heard one school wanting to do a chairlift, and I'm not sure if that's construction or not, but we got to find out about it.
Another question, Carol. For the ARP, do we fill in the private school and preschool numbers in that budget as well? And is it those numbers are based also on October 1 for last year, just like 621?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, and I say, and thank you for that, because that's something I didn't think about. Yes, on the art money, if you normally do preschool, or if you normally have private schools in it, you have to use that money the same. It has to go just like unfortunately, like if you're significantly disproportionate, that money is the same. It's still mandatorily set aside.
Okay. Thanks, girl.
You're welcome.
So this is Sean again.
Uh-huh.
So on the one budget, I was looking at your Zoom. That's the same page. Okay. So after we go into the federal budget and we've got the budget and we're doing the budget, you said down at the bottom, there was like property cost, allowable district cost, indirect cost percent. We don't fill in anything in there yet, do we? Just leave whatever up.
Right. Unless, okay, I'm going to it. So if you, up here, if you budget anything to 700, that is what the property costs are.
I see. Yes, ma'am. Okay.
And so it will take that out to calculate the indirect cost. And then now, the only place you can budget down here is if you're budgeting indirect costs. That right there is where you budget it.
And then, so then we also go ahead and do the 1,200 and we do the estimate of what the
Benefits.
benefits would be.
Yeah, that's up here.
I'm not on your page. Let me jump over there. Sorry.
You're good. It's just at the top of the budget, like where you're typing the stuff in.
Yeah, mine doesn't have all that.
No, let me show you a smaller school. This isn't a very small school, but I know I have permission to show it on the,
Or you could have gone to mine
yeah, that's true.
and said Hoover.
Yeah, see, you're still typing yours in.
Yes, ma'am. So
Now
the
you said-
numbers that my superintendent gave me are different than what the budget says. So I need to probably go ask him what he wants to do.
You know what? Give me just a second. See how you don't have any rollover money?
Yes.
So let's go see if the 621 closeouts are done, the 2021 closeouts are done. They are, and you just didn't have carryover. And how I know is it says approved down here. A lot of times if the numbers are different, it is because that's not completed. Any other questions?
No. And so when we get this one done, we say, hey, this budget's ready, but then we also do the 641, or do they both need to be done? 621, 641?
Yes, you'll have to do the 621 and 641 before you submit it.
Okay. And then 641, we talked about possibly using supplies and materials for those kids, but then when you said speech, but I have a speech therapist, but she works clear up through 4th grade.
Right, so you just want to use the portion, if you're going to do that, you just want to do the portion. That would be to the 3 to 5 year olds. The supplies and materials are great. If you've always done supplies and materials and not speech, that's one of those things you have to watch to make sure you haven't been paying the speech out of state and local. If so, you want to leave it out of state and local.
Right, and so if we do supplies and materials, do we have to specify exactly what they are, or can we?
No, you just, supplies and materials is fine.
Okay, excellent. All right, I will keep working on it. So now we're gonna take a break and come back at 12:30?
Yes.
Okay, and then at 12:30, are we gonna talk about a different budget, or are we just still working like we're doing now?
12:30, you're working on your budgets. We can answer any questions and we'll approve the budget.
Awesome. All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome. And in the chat, ARP money, she said ARP, A-R-P. Jay from Tecumseh, I will walk you through how to do that real quick. Hold on. So we know that the money's not there yet. You are with me, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'm going in here to show you real quick and then we'll take our break.
Sorry about that.
Oh, you're good? Okay, so.
Wait, what? Carol, while you're looking in there, you see the line for school-based services participation? Whoops,
Uh-huh.
you're fast clicking me. Sorry. Carol, stop it. I had an extra line than Middale had, and I guess it's just because it's unique to our district, but I really wasn't sure what that piece was.
Right, not everyone uses the school-based services.
Okay.
Okay, so allocations. On the allocations tab, when your money is tied together, okay, I'm gonna cheat and go to 21 so you can see it.
I saw you go like from Middale, they had, when you were in theirs, they had like a blue hyperlink to see those letters of allocation that had been. And that's what I
Right.
was, yeah, okay.
So this is your 621, and that way you'll know where it's at when it gets there for 22. Right here where it says administrative agent, you'll be able to click on it. and it lists your districts and how much they transfer.
Okay. Okay, so there'll be a
Then
blue hyperlink in the new budget then for that. Okay,
yes,
gotcha. Thank you.
you're welcome. Okay, are there any? If your budget is approved, you do not need to log back on this afternoon. And the best word of advice, if you're staying with us through the afternoon, don't log off. Mute and turn your video off and mute. If you're not doing your budget today, no, Brenda, you don't have to stay. Unless you have any questions for me and you know where I'm at anyway. Okay, so we're here for 3 more minutes and then we'll put our video on mute. And our volume on mute. I've got 3 more minutes. Anyone want to ask questions?
Come back at 12:30.
What was that?
Do we come back at 12:30?
Yes.
All
So
right.
just put your mute button and your video off button and then come back and see us at 12:30. I'm sure you can click back in the link, but it's just safer to do it the other way. Ladies who are approving budgets, do y'all have any questions? Okay. So we're gonna go ahead and head out early on break and we'll see you back at 12:30. That's gonna involve me finding my video off button and mute button.